When you reach the end of every lesson, we ask that you will read a book. You will read a book with the students so they can apply the skill that they are learning with you in small group into an actual authentic context, the context of reading a real book. You may use any book that you choose, any book that is on grade level, any book that may connect with your program, may connect with your high quality instructional materials, may be a book on grade level that your students can practice applying the skill. In our work, we have selected the book Ecology, the book The History of the American Revolution, and The Civil War Drummer Boy. This is a book that is for third grade, and it is based on Lexile on third grade level. This is a book on fourth grade, according to Lexile, and this is a book for fifth grade. Now, these two are books that address social studies content, and this is a book that addresses science content. We selected these books because they are books that include multisyllabic words. So it is easy for the students to see how what they learn into the context of small group and words in isolation that they read, that they spell, that they use in dictation of sentences, how this applies in the context of reading now, not just sentences, but reading paragraphs, but reading sentences continuously. I don't want you to think, and we don't want you to think that this is the only choice of books. We had other books that we considered. These are books that our partners, the schools that we collaborated with, gave us feedback that they really liked. So that's why we selected these books. It's not that this is a limiting factor. We don't want you to think that these are the only books that you should be using with this program. You can use any book, any text. We just guide you that there are books that contain multisyllabic words, and there are books that are on students' grade level. A benefit that we saw that by using these books, of course, it's first that they have sentences and structures that they are relevant to the needs of that grade. We also saw that the students were engaged because they were learning, and they were excited that they were learning content that they could discuss. A third benefit was because the texts were connected with social studies and science, they were related to the standards that they were learning for their grade. So when they will have these discussions about these topics into their classroom, they could participate because they had background knowledge, or they could participate because they knew about the topic. So they felt more confident, more motivated to participate in whole group discussions. So again, I don't suggest that you use these books, but consider books that they connect with social studies and science, because that can further support your students. Now, a question that we had from our partners is, how do I do the choral reading? At the very end of the lesson, we suggest to the teachers, now you're reading the book with the students and you're reading chorally with the students. Or you may ask them later to do partner read, or they can do silent read, and then they can silent reading, and then they can answer the questions. But initially you do choral reading. And in this choral reading, the teacher also models how to stop and to apply the strategy to read words that may be longer words. So how do you do, first of all, choral reading? And what is choral reading? Choral reading, as the word says, implies, it's something that you do all together, in chorus, all together. So in choral reading, we are reading as one voice. There is one voice that is heard. The teacher and the students produce one voice. However, the teacher is working first, seconds, to pull the students along, because the teacher is still modeling fluent reading with good rate and prosody. So it's important that's prosodic reading, because when we do the prosodic reading, we're supporting comprehension. And of course, rate is important, accuracy are very important, prosody is very important, and something that is also important is stamina. That is why we do not encourage, when you do choral reading, to reach the end of the page and then stop at the end of the page to say, okay, now let's discuss a question from this section, because we want to address rate, accuracy, prosody, and stamina. We suggest that you read 3 pages, perhaps the chapter, because they are not that long, and then you turn back to discuss the comprehension questions. So consider that, again, in the choral reading, we are trying to support students now fluency. And because we're discussing also the questions, we're really striving overall for efficiency. Okay, so let me show you how I will be reading chorally. And of course, I don't have a sample. I don't have a group of students to provide a sample. However, I will show you how I will start and how I will engage the students into the choral reading process, and then how I will stop to model how to read and explain some words and how to read them. So the students in the student book, they will be seeing this in that section of when they will reach the section of reading the book, where it will tell them that the purpose of the activity is to provide opportunity to apply the knowledge of big words reading when you come across unknown big words. We will read chapter books. Remember, if you see a word that you don't know, look for parts that you know. So we want the students to look for parts that they are known to them instead of immediately applying the syllabification strategy. Look for prefixes, look for suffixes, break them in syllables. If you cannot read the word, if you can recognize the parts and you can read along, continue to read. Recheck the pronunciation of a word and check the context for meaning making as if you stop to figure out a word. In other words, if you stop to figure out a word, you don't continue. You reread that sentence because you want to make sure you're making meaning, you're understanding. We always read to make meaning. That's the ultimate goal of reading, for the students to be able to make meaning, to comprehend what they read. So in order to avoid copyright violations, I have only provided a small section from the book so that I will model for you the reading part, but also I will model for you how to stop. So first of all, I will model the choral part. So we're going to be reading together. So we will sound in one voice. Ready? Ready. We will begin together. Ready? Begin. In Colorado, a young woman explains to campers why ticks are common in the area. In Florida, a college student checks on some newly hatched fish. And then I will stop. So I model for you the choral reading. I read, and I read with expression. And then I didn't say newly hatched fish. I said newly hatched fish, because that newly needs to go together with the word hatched in order to understand that this newly hatched fish that they were just hatched out. So it's important in the choral reading that the teacher will read with prosody. Now, as I will read, and I will do this one more time, I will stop to model how to read the word, because maybe I can't read that word. So I will model again the choral reading part, but also how I stop to decipher a word, applying my strategy. Ready? Begin. In Colorado, a young woman explains to, I don't know this word. Let me stop. I will use my strategy. I see that I have A as a vowel, E as a vowel, so I have two syllables. I have two consonants immediately after the vowel. They are not digraphs. I'm going to break in between. So I have a closed syllable and an R control syllable. Let me read it. Campers. Campers. Very good. I read the word. Campers. Let me start again. In Colorado, a young woman explains to campers why ticks are common in the area. So it's not that I just deciphered the word. I stopped, I figured out the word, I reread the sentence. And now I will continue. In Florida, a college student, ready? Begin. In Florida, a college student checks on some newly hatched fish. In Texas, a lab worker is creating a new method to keep, this is a long word. So let me see, how will I read it? I have I, and I see ing at the end. I see the double consonants, so I will break, and I see the part swim. Swimming, pools, clean. Let me reread that sentence. Begin. Ready? Begin. In Texas, a lab worker is creating a new method to keep swimming pools clean. What do these people have in common? They are all ecologists. Very good. Oh, there is a picture too. Let's read that. the label for the picture. This, I don't know this word, but I can recognize rain and I can recognize forest. This rainforest. So it is it is like a compound word. This rainforest plant depends on the ant. I don't know how to read this word. Let me write this word. So at this point, I can write this word on the board. I can write it in my smaller board. And I will apply exactly the same strategy. So I'm going to underline my vowels. I have two at the very end, right? And then I have two of the same consonants, so I can break in between. And then I don't have after the vowel another. I will break immediately after the vowel, because if I don't have double consonants after the vowel, I break immediately after the vowel. And then I have no consonant. I will break I have one single consonant. I will break immediately after. And then I see the es and is. That is a suffix, right? And that indicates that it's plural. It's many. So I will box this. So let me read now what I have. Come, close syllable, open syllable, mu, night, communities. No, that's not right. I need to be flexible, right? I'm gonna break this after the T. Let me try this again. Communities. Communities. Oh, it comes from commune. Commune, community, communities. So the word is communities. And you see how I read it by applying my strategy. So let me try this again. Let's read the sentence again. This rainforest plant, oh, ready? Begin. This rainforest plant depends on the ant communities that grow on it to survive. And that will be the reading that I will do. You don't have to stop in every sentence. Now I did it too much because I was trying to show you how to stop and show and model for the students. You need to consider the needs of the group. So that's why we don't tell you which words to select. We say select words based on the needs of your group. If your students are more comfortable with two-syllable words, you will not stop earlier. But if they have challenges with three-syllable words, then you will stop at communities in order for the students to practice this work. If you notice that the students struggle when they are reading, they did the lesson with you in our control, that syllable, you may stop when you look at the word survive. So we give this flexibility to the teacher to select the words that they will be modeling for the students. The point, though, is that one, you read chorally. Two, after you decipher the reading, that you decode that word and you apply your strategy, you reread the sentence, because the goal in the end is to make meaning. So that is the part of the choral reading and the selection of the words. Now, the next part is how do you work with a question? At the very end, we have provided you also with questions and the expectation that now that you read the chapter, you will go back and you will answer questions with the students. So here a question that we had was, based on the actions described on page 7, what is the role of an ecologist? Who is an ecologist? So the teacher will ask the students, what is the role of an ecologist? Let's go back on page 7 to find what is the role. What does an ecologist do? What do they do? So the students in this case, they may say, they explain why a place has ticks. They show fish, how they are hatched. So the students may select responses exactly as they are from the text. And now you will say, great. So what is now the role of the ecologist? What is it that they do? What are they working with? So the students will say they're working with nature, or you will support them in saying they're working with nature. Now, when the students say they look at ticks, this is not the response, correct? So I will say the ecologist can explain why there are ticks in an area, in a place, in nature, in a specific area. What else is it that an ecologist will do? A student may respond, show fish. Well, an ecologist may also check some newly hatched fish. What else is it that they can do? A student may say, they're showing how to clean pools. Correct. An ecologist. So you notice that I constantly model how to restate and respond. I model because gradually the students will follow that model. I will model and then I will say to the students, say that after me. Very good. I love that you provided such a great response. So gradually I'm supporting them through oral language to provide responses and also to pay attention to the text. So they don't just respond with a phrase because they do tend, when you are asking them questions, to respond with a phrase. And we want them to not give us a phrase, but to also provide a sentence. But I can't say to a student, give me a complete sentence. This is not a way to support them. We want them to fully support them. So how do we fully support them? By modeling. We model how to provide the responses, and then gradually we engage the students to repeat, and then as we proceed, we develop the pattern of that response. We don't want to discourage students. The goal is to encourage them and to empower them so they can see that the strategies we're teaching them, they support them to be good readers. Another question you may have is, that is great. How do I find those questions? Where are those questions? So once you look in your table of contents, under the links to lesson resources, we have the reading comprehension questions. And these questions now are based on these books. However, again, these are not a limiting factor. You can select to use any books. So since I worked with the grade 3, I will open the questions for grade 3, and this is where the question was. If I ask the question, because you have choices on questions, we have included several. What is ecology? If I ask that question, we provide you the guidance of how to answer it. Ology means the study of something, like archaeology, the study of ancient times, biology, the study of life, meteorology, the study of the weather. Ecos derives from Greek word ekos, that means home. So ecology is the study of our home, the study of nature, of where we live, right? Of our system. So that will be in this case the response. So that's where you will find the questions. And based on the guide and the request that our colleagues, our educators that we collaborated with shared, we are providing some bullet point guidelines of what the answer may be, but it's not a limiting factor. Again, we try to not to be limiting in any way on the responses, but we will give you some guidance of what you expect for each one of the questions when students respond, if you choose to use these words. But again, it is not a requirement, not these words, these books. You do not need to use these books. You can use any other book. So this is the guidance of how to do the choral reading, how to model for the students how to read the words, and then finally how to answer the comprehension questions and where you find these comprehension questions.